Welcome everyone to the March 24th meeting of Walpole Select Board. We're doing something a little bit different this time around because of the need for keeping people separated, so we're doing this remotely, which we are allowed to do under the newly established laws of the state, which say that as long as we're piping the video over a media, which we are through Walpole Media and YouTube, then we're good. So we're going to try and make this work. We think we can. It's going to take a little bit of discipline in order for us to make sure that we let everyone talk and recognize speakers. All votes will have to be taken by roll call, and we'll work our way through it. Before we do, though, and in keeping with tradition, I would like to ask everyone to stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so we don't have any people coming in to see us, obviously, today because of the need to keep the building closed. So what we're going to do is go right to our new business, and Jim, you're going to give us and the town an update on the coronavirus situations. I'll turn it over to you.
Sure.
Thanks.
So what I'd like to run through with the board is kind of an update as to what we've done so far, where we're at. Currently with the Board of Health, we have 8 confirmed cases in Walpole. Trash pickup is running as normal. Medical Reserve Corps have been activated with the assistance of the Recreation Department. Notice has been issued to the food establishments prohibiting on-premise consumption of food and drink through April 5th. And everybody's been directed to keep the 6-foot distance at least as long as possible. On the administration side, we did implement a budget freeze on all new hires and filling of vacant positions, with one exception being public safety. All non-emergency related expenses for each department are also frozen, with the exception of emergency-related purchases, coronavirus-related purchases, gas, diesel, trash pickup, contractual obligations, and utility costs. Out-of-town conferences and meetings were also suspended for department heads. State of emergency was declared on March 15th, 2020. We're operating a skeleton crew at this time for town hall staff. Recreation department's closed down. The employees are helping out with the food bank. Library's also closed down. And I've been providing updates to residents a few times a week. I try to do it at the beginning and end of each week just to let everyone know where we stand. Some additional coronavirus resources that I'd like to bring to the board's attention. We've ramped up the website. We've ramped up the Town of Walpole Twitter feed account. The PSAs are now distributed through that and through YouTube. We have an online food pantry order form for people who may need some food delivered to their houses. Today they did 80 deliveries through volunteer efforts and people at the food pantry. There's been a lot of municipal reform legislation that has been gone through the pipes, and actually today they proposed some more. The proposals that came forward today, it was in regards to permits and granting of permits and extended 45-day extensions on all permits at this time that have been issued or currently before the ZBA, Planning Board, Conservation. So that's good news. That's going to be a relief for us. The administration, through the governor's office, is also proposing the following: a method that would allow municipalities to utilize retirees during the current state of emergency, so that municipalities can tap qualified workers and their workforces can't be disrupted. That's actually something I put forward last week and asked them to consider moving retirees back, giving them that option if they'd like to, and also bringing on some of the recruits early that may be in the police academy and fire academy. Allowing restaurants and established that are also licensed to sell alcohol on the premises to sell beer and wine for takeout. That's something that's very new. The police chief's aware of that. That's being proposed, but from all I've heard, that's likely going to be approved. And on the finance side, real estate and sewer and water bills continue to go out. People can drop them off here at the drop box and mail them in. We are not taking cash, but we are accepting money orders and certified checks. There is legislation at the state level that's being proposed to waive the late payment for penalties for fourth quarter tax bills, which are due May 1st. There's also proposed legislation that would allow the tax bill date to be extended along with tax exemptions and tax deferrals. And everyone's working together throughout this crisis to ensure that, people have to make some tough decisions here, and that we can eventually get our taxes. So more to come on that. For the FY20 and FY21 budget, we're looking at local receipts estimated for both fiscal years. There will be reductions made to both years to reflect the downturn in the economy. On the town clerk side, spring annual town meeting, on March 15th and 16th, the moderator made it clear that he was going to postpone town meeting. I'm working with town council to ensure that the proper legal actions and declarations are made to ensure that we do everything properly. The police chief has to notify the attorney general. We first have to pick a date as to when it's postponed, so that's ongoing. A lot of people have asked me about the town election, which is, they have proposed legislation that allowed cities and towns to extend their town election, but that was for town elections prior to May 30th. Ours is going to be scheduled for June 5th. So one way or another, I expect that to be addressed and likely delayed. But we need to take our direction from the state at that one, and likely work with town council. The town clerk also continues to turn out birth certificates, death certificates, marriage certificates, make nomination papers available whenever possible. Community economic development, Ashley's gone ahead and set up a outreach website for businesses impacted, a takeout website to kind of help them push things along. We're trying to do as much as we can with local businesses to help them through this tough time. COA is closed until further notice. I will say that everybody's really come together to help out with some of the students who received, included as part of the lunch program. As I mentioned, 80 homes were delivered food today from volunteers and some of our staff that are at work at this time. So it's nice to see everyone come together and help out as much as possible. The police department, the police chief through Chief Carmichael and his staff have started to implement new policies and procedures and general orders to ensure a safe response for anyone going out on the street. Fire department closed until further notice to the public. However, we have opened and activated Station 2 in East Walpole. That was on March 18th. We're going to keep that open until further notice. I know the fire chief's in the room here, and he'll probably give some updates when we get to the appointments here. On the building department side of things and the inspections, and the inspectors keep going out. They're doing exterior inspections, emergency inspections, and whenever possible, interior inspections if it's a new building, a vacant building, and/or they're also doing it video inspections with people's phones. We're trying to do as much as we can as far as inspections. Construction for some of the major operations in town remain temporarily stopped at this time. I was informed today by the governor's office that they are going to start distributing guidelines for building inspections and construction job sites going forward that will allow crews to continue to work on site. My intent, and I think the building inspector's intent, is not to shut these sites down permanently. So when those guidelines are released, I am sure that we're going to ease some of the restrictions that were temporarily put in place last week. It's more like washing of hands, making sure there's hand stations to wash them, making sure that everyone is mindful of the social distancing guidelines that have been issued, restricting workers to no more than 10 per floor, 10 per section of the building. But I expect by the end of the week we'll release those and get some more people back to work, just being mindful of everything that's in place these days. So I know that's a lot. I'll also share this online and with the board. I'll send it out. So any questions? Would you want me to open it up?
Yeah, so what I'll do is I'll ask each of the board members individually to ask questions or make comments. And let me just start by saying, we're in a very unusual time here, one that I don't think any of us anticipated 2 months ago. And what I have seen in the last 2 to 3 weeks and what has gone on here in the town under your leadership, Jim, and Chief Bailey's in the room with us, but also Chief Carmichael, and all of your department heads have done just an amazing job keeping the critical services going, number one, while also staying very focused on the safety of course, the residents of the town, but also the employees at the town hall and our other facilities. It's been really amazing to watch the people of the town come together around this and make it work in a time of real uncertainty and fear and other considerations that, again, none of us would have even thought about 2 months ago. So I just think it's important to acknowledge that, yeah, you just read a big, long list of stuff, and it's a credit that we're able to continue to function the way that we are, and that's evidence of that. But it's only through the hard work, good thinking, creativity, innovation, and all the things that have been going on, including things like being able to keep these meetings going through Zoom, the website that Mike put up, and it goes on. And I just think it's been wonderful to see the town come together. That said, we still have a lot to go ahead of us. Who knows how long this is going to go on for, and we need to be prepared for any eventuality. So we're going to continue to do that. We're working well together as a team, and I think doing all the right things for the residents and the employees. And we'll see how the next several weeks go, but this is going to be our mode of operating for the foreseeable future. So with that said, let me open it up to the board members. David, would you like to go first?
Sure, thank you. Thank you, Jim, for those comments about the town and the board. In the administration, I certainly agree they've done a great job. I think opening the second fire station was an inspired idea, as well as the ideas that were that this chief has had about using the ambulances, which he may come up discuss later. And I'm glad also that we realize that this is a fluid situation where things change, and so that the prohibition against the construction sites, I appreciate that it's being looked at again, especially since the state guidelines indicate that construction being construction of housing units actually being an essential function under the state's the governor's mandate. And so that's an interesting, it's good that we're going to look at that, and as soon as those standards come out, I hope that those projects can get back on board. Exactly. And perhaps I don't know if you've given them a heads up already, but I'm sure they would appreciate some a little lead time to know when that standard's going to be lifted. And that's about it. Thanks.
Thanks, David. Nancy, I'll go to you next.
Thank you, Jim. I just wanted to say that again, Johnson, you've done an excellent job keeping us updated every day, and the residents, and everything that everybody is doing has been really good. All the staff have been very accommodated. Everybody has realized that things are changing every day, and everybody has been very flexible to be meeting the demands of the new data.
Nancy, we seem to have lost you.
I noticed she went back to
Looks
mute.
like you're on mute. Did you do that intentionally?
Yeah, she's back.
Oh, all right, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can, yeah.
Oh, okay. I just said that I think that Jim has done a great job keeping the board up to date, the residents up to date. It's everyone, the staff especially, have done a really good job of being very flexible and realizing that there's a new day every day, and everyone has really stepped up and providing great service for the town. And so thank you.
Thanks, Nancy.
Thanks.
Ben, go to you next. Ben, are you there?
Yeah, he's unmuted.
Yeah, I thought I was going to get unmuted automatically, but I wasn't. So, no, I would echo what everybody said. Certainly, a big thank you to Jim Johnson and all the staff, and Melissa and both chiefs for all the work that they've done and how flexible they've been not only to all of our input and poking, but everyone else's as well, and have it being such a fluid situation, and being confident in making these decisions with everyone and the residents' health paramount. You know, a lot of these are difficult decisions, closing down various aspects of the town, but I think that you can never be too safe. So I just wanted to say thank you to all those folks for putting the residents' safety before all, and I know that that'll continue as we feel our way through this.
Thanks, Ben. Mark?
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said. I just wanted to also add that I appreciate all the hard work by all the employees of the town. When I was out earlier today, I did see town employees out in their vehicles performing essential services, and I appreciate that. And I know that in some cases that's going to be hard for them based on their family situations, but they're out there getting the work done. And I just wanted to say I really do appreciate that.
Great, thanks, Mark. So, yeah, so we'll keep at it. It is a fluid situation, as David points out, and we'll react as events warrant, both in terms of hopefully opening up construction and things like that, but also if things go the other way, we'll react to that as well. I think the town's in good hands with Jim and the leadership team he's got here, and a big thank you to all the employees who have been doing just a great job continuing to keep the critical services going.
Thank you.
Okay, Jim. Moving us on to new business now. So a couple of things just administratively here. So Nancy, I assume that you've always been the motion person. I assume you'll continue to do the motions. Is that a good assumption? You're on mute, Nancy.
And we lost her.
Okay. Yeah, if need be, I'll take care of the motions. David, you'll do the consent agenda, I assume?
That's fine.
Perfect, okay. So I'd like to, since Chief Bailey is here, I would recommend that we move up the firefighter recommendations for conditional offers. So, Chief, why don't we go ahead and do that? And
You want to come and sit here at least so they can see you and I'm not spinning around and I can just shoot aim it?
so I know we've got three contingent offers that we want to make tonight to firefighters that are in various states of training and so forth. And so if you could step us through that, that'd be terrific. Obviously, this is another one of our responses to the situation, wanting to make sure that we have plenty of first responders in place. These are hires that are we were intending to do anyway. These are just going to be accelerated. So Chief, if you just step us through the three candidates and we'll take a vote.
Sure, so tonight I have before you three candidates, two of which are veterans. They both have been working on paramedic vehicles for private ambulance services. They have both have a fair amount of experience, as well as their military experience, whether they were either a combat medic or healthcare specialist. The third candidate is a Walpole resident, and he is a graduate of Walpole High School. He has been in to see me several times over the last couple of years in working towards the process to get on the fire department, and he has met the requirements of being a paramedic, which is what we look for, and he's one of the recommendations as well. He has experience on an ambulance as an EMT. He just obtained all of his paramedic within the last month and a half, so we'll be able to bring him up to speed fairly quickly. The other two individuals, if appointed, will be ready to go within a week or two.
Perfect. Okay. All right, so we'll follow the same process that we just followed. I'll round robin the board with questions for the chief. So, Mark, why don't we start with you since we ended with you last time?
I don't really have any questions for the chief. I did go through the resumes. I like all the resumes. I'm glad we're expediting their hiring so that we have more people available as things continue to pick up. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Okay. David? David, you're on mute.
Okay, no, I thought you were going with Ben next.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
yeah, thanks, Chief. I appreciate you, switching it up and, like I said, about opening the 2 stations and all of, the other, changes that you've made. And, were you able to find any toilet paper when you were at Stop and Shop today?
Nancy, we'll go to you next.
Oh, yeah.
So I was knocked out for a few minutes. I just dialed back in.
All right, Chief, why don't you just spend a couple of minutes just for Nancy's benefit, just sort of re-saying what you said? Okay.
So I have 3 candidates before you this evening. 2 of them are, all 3 are paramedics, but 2 of them are veterans. They're combat medics, and 1 was a healthcare specialist in the Army. And the 3rd candidate is a Walpole resident, graduate of Walpole High School, has been in to see me on numerous occasions in his process of trying to become a Walpole firefighter. He's at that point now where he's obtained his paramedic within the last month and a half. He too has worked on an ambulance as an EMT, and we should be able to get him up to speed as a medic within the next couple of weeks.
So Nancy, any questions or comments for the chief?
No, none at all.
Great, thank you. Ben?
No, I'm all set. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
And I'm really all set too. Again, just thank you for good creative thinking to get these, folks onboarded more rapidly than we had originally planned. I think it's certainly in the benefit to the town to do that, and also for all the other good things you've been doing, so.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the board taking this action. We will need the personnel. We've been getting hard hit the last couple of days, and I anticipate that to continue. So I will be able to get them out and make that a reality.
Do you want to talk to them about, will
I
you
would
make
like
the
to.
motion, and there's something else I
Yeah.
want to make sure.
Okay. Nancy, I think before you got knocked off, I had asked if you wanted to continue the normal process of making the motions, so would you like to do that?
Sure, I will make a motion to offer conditional employment as firefighter paramedic. Do you want them individual?
Can we vote them as a block?
Yeah, that's
I
fine.
don't think there's any reason why we can't just vote them as a block, Nancy.
Okay, so a motion to offer conditional employment as firefighter paramedic to Peter Kistner, Raphael Lara, and Sam Bruce.
And do I have a second? Ben? Okay, Ben seconds. So again, we're gonna round robin for questions. Any further discussion, David?
All set, thank you.
Nancy, any further discussion?
No discussion.
Ben, further discussion?
No discussion.
And Mark, any further discussion?
All right, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can.
I'm all set.
Yeah, okay, thanks. All right, and so now what we're gonna do is a roll call vote. So we have a motion and a second, and so, David, I'll call you first.
Aye.
Nancy?
Aye.
Ben?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes?
And Jim, I vote yes as well. So the vote is 5-0-0 to appoint the 3 new firefighters. Hold on one second here. Sid, was there something else you wanted
Yeah,
to cover?
if, we'll take the vote on the personnel, then I want to make sure the chief gives you.
We just did 5-0-0, so we're good.
So, you want to talk to him a little bit about the game plan, no vote?
Yes, so in the interest of separation of personnel and separating personnel further after last week's incident, which knocked out the entire command staff, a lieutenant, a captain, and 8 firefighters. I've been looking at it, and I'd like to propose that our minimum currently is an 8-man minimum. I'd like the board to endorse me to move to a 9-man minimum, which would allow me to separate my officers even further, and take the captain and lieutenant out of Station 1 and put the lieutenant down at Station 2. That would put 4 personnel at Station 2 and 5 personnel out of Station 1. It would enable us to run The second engine out of East Walpole, as well as an ambulance out of there, and then the remaining staff coming out of uptown. What that will do is and with the new staff that we just hired, once we get them up to speed in a week or two, it'll enable us to possibly run the third ambulance if we had to. We've been looking at, currently we have 4 ambulances, 3 of them are in service. We can run up to 3 by our license, so if and when we have personnel available, I would like to be able to do that. By putting me at 9 as my temporary minimum for this crisis, would help us would benefit us greatly by separating the officer staff even further. Along with that, the deputy, myself, and Linda all have the capability of working from home, so we can further separate ourselves if necessary. This past week, the deputy and I have both been coming in, trying to take care of a lot of the logistical issues that we have, especially with regards to personal protective equipment. We've made some gains on that. We still have a ways to go, but we are actively working on that, and we have our staff actively working on it. So we've had some business partners in the community that have actually stepped up to help us as well. They'll be doing, Siemens will be doing some of our fit testing for us in the next week or so for the N95. So these are all positives and things that we're working on.
So,
The one other thing I'd like to bring up the board up to speed on is we purchased 2 different types of disinfecting machines for the apparatus as well as the station. One is a fogger. The fogger is a disinfectant fogger, and what that does is it does a fine particulate mist, and it covers and permeates through everything that we disperse it into. And then we have 2 wet mist type of disinfectant machines where it actually sprays on and then we have to wipe it down. That's a little bit, it's also invasive, but it takes a little bit longer for us to clean that up after we've sprayed the disinfectant. The only drawback with it currently is that we have a limited amount of fluid, so we're making sure that we use it on the ambulances and then any other areas in the station that we feel may have been suspected to have been contaminated. But right now, it's primarily being used in the ambulances. We do have a request in to get more disinfectant fluid for these machines, and hopefully that'll be coming through in the next week or 2.
that's great. Do you need a vote of the board?
Oh, I was just gonna say, do you want me to make a motion of support?
Certainly.
Endorsement?
A motion of support would be terrific, Nancy.
So moved.
Let me just ask if there's any further discussion. So David, further discussion?
All set, thank you.
Mark?
All set, sounds like a smart idea.
Ben?
All set, thank you.
And Nancy, I assume no more from you?
Right.
And I'm good. I don't know if I heard a second, so I'll second it. So we have a motion and a second to support the chief's proposal as he just laid out to us for the disinfectant and the additional firefighters on the shifts. All in favor? David?
Aye.
Nancy?
Aye.
Ben?
Yeah.
Mark?
Aye.
And Jim, aye, 5-0-0. Chief, thanks very much for everything
Thank
you're
you.
doing. Really appreciate it. Okay.
Appreciate it.
And please tell the firefighters we really appreciate everything they're doing every day.
will.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good, thanks. All right, let's go back up to the top here. So our next business item is a change of manager and change of directors for Walpole Country Club.
Just to follow up on these next 2, paperwork's all in order. They've been reviewed. They were reviewed a couple weeks ago before all this. Everything's in order.
Okay, so we'll round robin it on questions. Mark?
No questions, it looks good.
Ben?
All set.
Nancy?
All set.
And David?
No questions.
Okay, Nancy, a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the change of manager to Richard Campbell and change of directors for the Walpole Country Club.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. David?
Aye.
Nancy?
Aye.
Ben?
Yes.
Mark?
Aye.
And Jim, I'll vote yes as well, 5-0-0.
I'll make a motion to approve the change of manager for Applebee's to Michael Boeri for Applebee's.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? David?
No questions.
Nancy?
No ball set.
Ben?
All set.
Mark?
All set.
And I'm all set too. So motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. David?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
Nancy?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
And Jim, 500. Yeah, aye, 500. Okay, next up, we have a request from the Concom to authorize the chairman, myself, to sign a right of entry for Mass DOT.
Sure.
Jim,
Mr.
can you
Chairman.
just take that?
Yeah, basically what this is asking for is, this is for the Route 1A Transportation Improvement Project, TIP project, for if and when that ever comes forward. They wanted some area to store and kind of use as a staging area for some of their equipment. This has been vetted by the Conservation Commission through their agent, Landis Hershey. She's been working with Town Council Mark Rich on this one. We've reviewed it, Mark's comfortable with it, it's pretty standard, and again, MassDOT is the one asking for the temporary easement and more or less for their staging for that, so I'd recommend favorable action on this request. Conservation Commission voted 4-0-0.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Discussion, Mark, we'll start with you.
A motion to approve the, oh,
Let's just do the discussion quickly. So, Mark,
No questions.
Ben,
All set.
Nancy,
all set.
and David? David, there you go.
No questions. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
thanks, and I don't have any questions. So, Nancy, a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the request of Conservation Commission to authorize the chairman to sign the right of entry for MassDOT.
I'll second that.
A motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. David?
Aye.
Nancy?
Aye.
Ben?
Yes.
Mark?
Aye.
And Jim, aye, 500. All right, next up, we have a request for a one-day all-alcohol license for the Fish and Game Club.
Mr. Chairman, again, Cindy's looked over all this, their paperwork is attached to your packet, everything's submitted, pretty standard stuff. I'm hoping we can go forward with this when it's scheduled on 4/25.
Okay. Nancy, any questions for Jim?
No questions about the event, but when we make the motion, should we just reference that it would be, subject to the, state of emergency?
Subject to the governor lifting all his requirements that are in place temporarily.
Okay.
Does that sound okay? So, subject to the governor lifting his orders that have been placed temporarily as a result of this emergency?
I think that's fine.
Sounds good.
You good with that? Okay. We have a motion, second? I'll second it. Nancy, all in favor, please say aye. Nancy?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Ben?
Yes.
Mark?
Aye.
And Jim, aye. 500. All right, our next order of business is renewal of membership to various committees. So we all received a list of all of the various committees, and I'm not going to read all the names, but it's the annual reappointment of people to the various committees. So that includes the Adams Farm, Board of Health, Committee for Alcohol and Drug Awareness, Concom, Council on Aging, Cultural Council, the Education Fund Committee, Historical Committee, Housing Partnership Committee, Insurance Advisory, Permanent Building Committees, Plan Management, Registrar of Voters, Recreation Committee, Taxation Aid Committee, Town Forest, the Trust Fund Commissioners, the Veterans Services Committee, Walpole Trails Committee, and the Zoning Board of Appeals. So again, I'm not going to read through the names. You can see from the highlights that we have some folks that did not return paperwork. I will say that on the Board of Health, we did receive paperwork today for both Dr. Richard Bringhurst, who is a regular member requesting reappointment, and Stephen Schaub, who is an associate member requesting reappointment as an associate. So we have the paperwork for 4 out of the 5 members of the Board of Health. Jim, to my knowledge, we did not receive any other paperwork today for any of the others that
No.
have yet turned them in.
Those were the only 2.
So unless anyone has an objection, what I would propose is that we do a single motion to reappoint all of the folks that are on these couple of pages to the various committees, for those who have turned in their paperwork and requested reappointment. So let me open that up and just see if everyone's good with that. David, you good with that?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes, and I'll reflect that when I make the motion too.
Okay.
And that it will, the document, and that it will be eventually online.
Perfect, okay. Ben
Yes, all set.
and Mark?
Yes.
Okay, so Nancy, I think we're ready for motion?
Yes. I will make a motion to renew the memberships of appointed committees, those listed in documented 3-25 that are not highlighted, but as changed to the document, Richard Bringhurst and Stephen Schwab under the Board of Health will be also renewed, and due to extenuating circumstances, I will note that these will be updated online and will be able to be seen there.
I'll second that.
Okay, a motion and a second. I'm going to assume no further discussion, so we'll move right to the roll call vote. So David?
Aye.
Nancy?
Aye.
Ben?
Yes.
Mark?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. So the motion carries 5-0-0. Okay, that completes the new business category. Let's move on to the consent agenda. So David?
These items will be voted as one roll call vote. These are gifts from Walpole Cooperative Bank to the Recreation Community Events Fund in the amount of $5,000. I hope we get to use that soon. Junior Women's Club of Walpole to the Recreation Community Events, $500. And Middlesex Savings Bank to Community Policing and Marketing, $10,000. Wow, a lot of money.
Yeah, it's a good one. Okay, Mark, I think I just heard you second.
Yes, yep.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Again, I'm going to assume no further discussion. David?
Aye.
Ben?
Yes.
Nancy?
Aye.
Mark?
Yes.
And Jim, yes. So that motion carries 5-0-0 as well. That concludes the consent agenda. Thank you, David. On to the town administrator's update. Jim?
I covered mostly everything as part of the coronavirus I covered everything as part of the coronavirus update. I would make one note. At the end of the day, I got word from Melissa in the Department of Public Health that we received a $10,000 grant from DPH.
Hang on, let me just mute this over here. Okay, go ahead.
We received a $10,000 grant from DPH for investigation of the coronavirus. So that can go towards the nurse who's been doing all the investigation for us, towards that cost. And we're exploring what else we can use it on. So good news on that front. They're moving somewhat quickly to get a $10,000 grant in. And for us, it's mostly all coronavirus all the time at Town Hall. And we're working through it. Everyone's in the same boat together. And we'll get through it one way or another.
So thanks, Jim. I appreciate that update, just getting off mute there. And you're right, we are going to get it through one way or the other. And I think we've demonstrated that, just the, what the town and people of the town are all about over these last few weeks, and that'll continue. And at some point, we'll get through it. So we'll continue operating this way until that happens. And, again, we'll adjust as events warrant. So anything else, Jim?
That's it.
Okay, so that concludes our agenda for this evening. I do want to just make sure that I thank Patrick from Walpole Media, who's in the room here with us, making sure that all of the technology we're using here is actually working correctly with Walpole Media and Zoom and YouTube, et cetera. So Patrick, thank you very much for being here and helping us through this tonight. Appreciate it. And with that, I will ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting. All in favor, please say aye. David?
Aye.
Nancy?
Aye.
Ben?
Yes.
Mark?
Aye.
And Jim, yes. And so we are now adjourned. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.